edition of Rich and Wibo present the local artist show. Today's guest is Darcy Abbott, and we're gonna have a change in the way we do this show. Normally, I start the episode and ask most of the questions, but today, Wibo is taking the reins. So, Wibo, thank you very much for doing this. I had a busy week.
Welcome.
Darcy, thank you very much for being on the show. I really do appreciate you coming here. So I know you're very busy. We're going to talk about all the things that you do. So you do a lot, and I can't wait to hear all about it.
Well, thank you. My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having.
It's on me, Rich. It's on
All right.
me. I got tears. It's on me. Oh, welcome to the local artist show. Wibo and Rich Says, the local artist show. It's a hot show right now. It's going on right now. It's going to be big. Tonight we have a special guest tonight, Darcy Abbott. And we're going to talk about her, but you had a few, and she's going to let us know what's going on because Darcy is a local real estate professional, community radio DJ, and producer of annual Still River Music Fest, returning in 2022.
Yes.
No, what is that about that fest? The Still River Fest.
Oh, the Still River Music Festival. Well, we got to back up a little bit because, I've been on WAPJ doing local community radio since about 2015. And I do a show, both of my shows I use as platforms to bolster all the local musicians in the New England area because we're so rich in talent. So I did that for a number of years. And then, after a couple of years of doing that, I love to support charities and nonprofits and, community-based things. So I decided to create a music festival featuring all local original artists and take that festival and use the proceeds to support local nonprofits.
Now, you do real estate too, right? Real estate and
I do. I'm a real estate agent with Berkshire Hathaway, actually, in the Torrington office, and I like it a lot. I've been doing that for about four or 5 years, just about, and I enjoy it. It's a hot market right now, and if anybody out there's thinking about selling, we need some inventory, and
yeah.
I will make it as painless as possible.
my son just started. He got his license. He's doing part-time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing part-time. A lot of younger kids now doing real estate now, part-time now.
Well, that's it. And so he's part-time. So he's in the learning phases now where it's like, you go to real estate school and you pay the money and you go all through the stuff and you take the tests and you get all that stuff done. And then you go out and you learn how to do real estate.
Now, you sell your $1 million house yet?
Yeah. Oh, no, not $1 million house. No, but we're the volume that we are doing is incredible right now. There's half the inventory, but just as many buyers. So we've got a lot of competition. So you're getting, if it's priced right, you're getting a bidding war in a lot of cases. You're getting several offers, to choose from. So, it's a robust market and the mortgage rates are still at historic lows. So call me.
Call you. What's your number? We can do it later on, right? No,
yeah, right. You can find me I'm on Facebook. I have a page for my Berkshire Hathaway, and I also have Facebook, and I have a page for the radio shows too, because like you guys, when we're not on COVID restrictions, which we still are, by the Zoom here, that then I have the local artists come in and play live right in the studio, which I love doing because it's like having it gets the local artists out there. It gets that energy in the studio, and I just love it. There's that interaction, the bantering back and forth, we really enjoy it. So I'm hoping by end of summer, we'll be able to have guests back in. So Still River Music Festival was a spinoff from me doing the radio, like I said, and we didn't opt to do it this year because it's typically held the weekend after Father's Day every June at the Riverton Fairgrounds. And with the COVID and everything that's gone on, we just did not know where it would be. And so we opted to wait it out this year. We didn't want to do a virtual event because there's a lot of virtual events going on. And we figured if things were opening up and the larger scale events were going to be able to do it, then, let them have the, because everybody's just getting out, not everybody's going out, economic impacts and everything else. So we're going to be back in 2022, and we are going to be supporting the Cancer Care Fund of Litchfield Hills. That's our target organization, benefactor.
Well, I tell you, you busy, Darcy, because when I turned on the radio station, this is a local radio station, you listen to your show. You have a lot of local artists come on the show from all over the place. They show their talent and stuff. Out and having a good time with them. They're having a good time. It's good.
It is. It's a lot of fun, and we enjoy it. And it's like having a private concert like every week.
I appreciate it. That's good. And that's something you enjoy doing too. And plus, you're doing a radio station, doing real estate. Family person. You busy.
Yeah.
You busy.
Well, we've got 3 granddaughters.
Ooh, you got me beat.
Yeah. Well, we got them all at once.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's like a blended family. 2 of them are twins. So my
okay. Oh, it's cheating.
Yeah, exactly. My and girlfriend, they're a blended family, and so they've been together for several years now. And so, we blend. There's, it's not all about blood and all that good stuff. We have the family blending thing down in our family because we've been a blended family for 30 years. So, but we love the grandkids. They are so much fun. I'm not a grandma. I am not a grandma. Nope, not grandma. I told my son years ago, I'm not going to be called grandma. I'm going to be called Yaya.
Yaya. Okay.
Yeah, that's Greek.
It's Greek. Okay.
Yeah, some of your viewers will be like, Yaya, we know what that is. And it's not because I'm Greek. And I told my son, I said, it's because I had to tell so much as it being a mom and having, no, you can't do that. No, don't jump off a bridge. No, don't play with fire. This way I can tell the grandkids, yeah, whatever you want. Yeah.
The hotspot, is that a morning show or afternoon show?
All right, so the hotspot is on every Monday from 4 to 7 p.m. And the reason I did the 4 to 7 p.m. on Monday is because I also highlight local businesses. And so typically local businesses, small businesses, and musicians are not working. Musicians don't play on Monday nights typically, and businesses are typically closed on Monday. So I wanted to pick a time frame where they would have the opportunity to actually get to me in the station. And then the other slot I do the Thursday morning edition of the Miscellaneous Morning Show, and I play all local music there too. So 6 hours of all local music.
What station is that?
WAPJ Torrington. We are your community radio station located on your FM dial at 89 and 105.1 FM. If you are outside of our Torrington listening area, go right to WAPJ.org, hit that listen live button, or find us on your favorite TuneIn app, because we travel well and we love to travel. We like adventure.
Hey, Rich, I think she's looking for an autograph. You want an autograph?
I'd like a selfie.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because when you're in the studio, and I'm sure Rich knows this too, and Wibo, I know you've been a guest many times.
Yeah.
Whatever expression is on your face is what's going to come through your voice. So if you're behind the mic and you're like, yeah, we're on WAPJ, you know what I mean? Nobody wants to hear that in the morning.
No, I don't want to do that.
So smile. If you're smiling, you can't say aggressive. You say things aggressively. You know what I mean? It's like, try it. No matter how.
How long you been at the radio station? How long you been at the radio station?
Since about 2015, I kind of started my training and all that good stuff. And it's a great opportunity. And I encourage all the local artists, first of all, to get your, if you've got a CD that's recorded, get your music to me. If you have and I try to let everybody know, we are a community radio station. We are governed by the FCC. We are not, and even though we are on the internet, we are not an internet-based radio station. So it's really important that the local artists mark their songs that have swears, because the FCC has rules.
Yeah,
That is the one thing I do try to stress to local artists. But give it, get your music to me, because my hashtag is all genres matter. So I like to give everybody the opportunity. Like I said, as long as there's no swears in it, and the FCC is not going to give us a big old fine, they can.
Did you go to school for DJing?
No, I did not. We got our training OJT right at WAPJ. They do a good job. You go through a whole program. Now it's not happening right now because of COVID, but when they open back up, once or twice a year, they'll do a like a, what do they call it, an orientation. And people will come in, and they'll get the training and give their show ideas. And then, a lot of times they'll pair up with a mentor. My mentor was Barry Susie, who many people know from the Miscellaneous Morning Show and, around town. And so, you work with that person, and then you get to the point where you're comfortable, you do your demo, management listens to it, decides whether or not you're ready for the airwaves. And if you are, they cut you loose. So
Cut you right loose, huh?
yeah, cut you loose. Yeah. Well, they cut you loose. You don't ever want them to cut your cord.
No. You'll bleed too long.
But yeah, so I mean, it's a great opportunity, and I always encourage people, if they have any interest at all, or they think they might have a passion there, go for it.
And I turned the radio station on the other day, what I used to do, and I heard you talking and doing your thing. I said, "Look at Darcy, man, sounds so professional." Look at
Thank you.
You're having fun too, all at the same time. That's the key.
Yeah. Well, that is it. And honestly, if I didn't have a passion for promoting the local musicians and, the WAPJ platform, I wouldn't still be there. You know what I mean? Because it truly is a passion to support local, to support the little guy. Because, the one thing I always say is every big band, Bon Jovi, Leonard Skinner, Black Crows. I mean, every one of them started in somebody's basement, somebody's garage. They paid their dues. They peddled their CDs. They begged for gigs. They begged to perform on the street corners and everything else. You know what I mean? So I try to have my platform be utilized for that.
And you do a good job too with that. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Very, very professional. I listened to you, and you doing announcing everything else, and that was real good. It's nice, like you say, they give the local artists a chance to do something, because everything starts from the bottom.
That's right. And actually, even over the course of it, Wibo, I had, when I was like 4 years old, I had this plastic guitar with plastic strings. I don't know whatever happened to that guitar, but I remember having that guitar. And then in grammar school, I pedaled around with a couple little instruments, the drums, the flute, and da-da-da. But I always liked the guitar. And so I don't know, in my mid 40s, I was like, oh, I think I want to do this. You know what I mean? Like, I had a flute I didn't play. So I traded that in, like I sold it. And I bought myself a guitar, right? Like, I didn't have any confidence. I didn't even buy like a full size guitar. It was only 3/4 size, So, but then I started taking some lessons I started out with Sarah Galgano, actually, up at Noteworthy Music. All those guys, shout out to those guys, because it's a great spot. Yeah. And then I ended up going into vocal and co-writing. I do a lot of writing with Carrie Johnson. So I'm very excited. I'm probably going to put out a small EP in late fall or over the winter. But I'm actually thinking about putting it out in January for my 50th birthday.
Oh.
Yeah, why not? It's a bucket list thing. It's not like,
yeah.
It's fun, and I love it, and I like writing, and we have fun. written songs about everything. You know, I got dragged down the road by my son's dog a few weeks back, a couple months ago now. So now he is a blues song. You know?
Want to play guitar, the dog, or what?
Huh?
Did the dog want to play guitar?
Well, he's got, well, it's funny because he's 110 pounds at a year old. He's a big, yeah, he's a King Corso, which is, you know, why he was dragged down the road. So yeah, I look forward to that. That's a lot of fun. And I love Carrie Johnson. Was a local musician. She now lives on Block Island. And so her and I, we do this. We Zoom and we write, and then we get together a couple times a year. I go visit her or whatever. Yeah. So exciting.
Now you took guitar lesson?
Yeah, I took with Sarah, and then I continued on with guitar and vocal. And then Carrie and I just became like the best of friends. You know, she's just such a wonderful person. And, you know, instantly we just connected like a house on fire. You know, it was like great. So we've been co-writing for about 3 years. We've got about 14 songs completed so far. So yeah, and I enjoy it. But like I said, it's a hobby. I'm not, you know, out looking to, you know, hit bar rooms and start gigging. I play open mics periodically here and there. You know, I just, you know, slow but sure. Maybe you'll see me busking someday out in, you know, one of the corners. I don't know. I won't say never, but it was a hobby, a bucket list.
Yeah. Hey, Darcy, the Still River Music Fest, how long you been doing that?
Well, we started that. The first one went off in 2017. And so, you know, this would have been our 5th year, but COVID kind of knocked us, you know, around. So we got 3 years in, 3 good years, and then the COVID. And then, you know, like I said, we plan to continue. But when I, you know, contacted the insurance agents and started looking into all the logistics of, you know, what might have to happen in order to hold a festival, we decided at our size, you know, we're just going to wait. You know, we're going to wait the extra year. And we recently, like, I purchased tickets to go to Camp Creek, which is actually being held. Max Creek for 50 years has been putting on a huge camp out, right? So it's been up in New York, it's been in Maine. Well, it's in Connecticut now, in Basra. So we're very, very excited. But that's in September. We bought tickets to that, knowing that if COVID reared its ugly head and things were crazy, well, then we weren't going to be going. But we wanted to get the tickets just in case. But, you know, we're very excited. And then when I went to purchase the tickets online, there's like 4 pages of COVID related, you know, you agree and we are not liable and blah, you know, I mean, it's just insane. So that was, you know, the liability, you know, and all that stuff. So we weren't sure that all of our volunteers, because it is run entirely by volunteers, you know, would be able to be vaccinated if they wanted to be. So, you know, we erred on the side of caution this year, but we're coming back next year.
Coming back.
Yeah.
So once you and Rich get together and do something, Rich can do some comedy so you can play guitar.
I'm telling you, actually, Rich would be a good MC because he could do a little comic relief in between. Right, Rich. You know, and that's it. And the thing is, you know, like the last year we were able to have it. Jacques was the MC, you know, and so he, you know, and he did good. He's charismatic, but we love to get the community involved and local people, you know, and that's what it's all about. It's about bringing folks together. Yeah.
Rich would be real good. He's the man.
Yeah, he'd be a barrel of laughs.
Yeah, he will be.
So
I was gonna say is I can say that in the past I've emceed some music festivals. There's one in Ansonia at Nolan Field, and I realized that people, and I've done it in bars too, people want to hear music and they don't want, like, it's hard to mix comedy and music. So yeah, I like you. Be an MC. I realized very quickly, be the MC, make the announcement, do a joke here and there, and just talk to the crowd instead of just doing your act, because people who want to see comedy want to see comedy. People want to see bands. want to see bands. So when the bands are off stage, they're at the bar getting beers or talking to their friends. So yeah, I realized very quickly, just be the MC, make some announcements, make a joke here and there, and just go on and get the show going. Just keep everything moving.
Well, yeah, and you know what I find too is comedy is better in a listening environment, in a listening room. Festivals are not necessarily a listening venue. People are doing other things. It's kind of like, like bar rooms. Bar rooms are not listening venues. So one thing, like when I do open mics and stuff, like I do love to look for like the small coffee shops and things like that, because they tend to be more of a listening venue. So that's kind of my take on it, but you're absolutely right. But there's always room for a joke or two up in, seeing, so you never know what could happen. You could do a bit, you could have a lot of fun with somebody in the audience, especially if they start, impromptu back and forth with you. You never know. Like I took impromptu comedy lessons and that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was in improv class as well. I loved it. Had such a great time doing it, and it really did teach me a lot of dealing with comedy and dealing with people. So I did learn a lot from that. And also I was in radio for a while too. I went to Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and you mentioned Barry Susie. It was funny. I went to the orientation. So I was already part of Nutmeg Junction. I took over Nutmeg Chatter for Joe Timothy Quirk, but I still had, so I can get into the studio by myself, I still had to go to the orientation. And I'm looking at this guy. I said, where do I know you from? Ended up being Steve J, who I worked with at 1240 WWCO in Waterbury for 5 years back in the 90s. And I said, did you ever work at 1240? He goes, yeah. And then we realized that and what's funny, he went on from 10 to 3. I went on from 3 to 7. I learned so much. So I used to come in around 9:15, 9:30, just watching him do his thing and talk. And I said, you have no idea, but you taught me so much about radio. And it was funny to see him back there. And Sal, I worked with Sal Barbieri, who's also part of WAPJ at 1240 WWCO. So it's like all these DJs and people I've known in the radio business are all coming back. And I love the fact that community radio does exist. Give these people, because radio is just, terrestrial radio, it just really isn't a big thing for people to make a living anymore. It wasn't even back then. I think it's funny, when I was in radio 1992 to 97, they were telling me like, oh, you got in the radio at the wrong time. This is when all these bigger stations were buying the smaller stations. And I went on a cruise with the Whale 102.9, which used to be WDRC.
Yes.
I was talking to DJs and they said, oh man, I wish I was in radio when you were in radio. That's when it was fun. I said, wow, this is a big switch. They were telling me I got in the radio when it was boring and it's no more fun. Now they're telling me, oh, I wish I was in radio when you were in radio. It's just
that's why at community radio we have so much more fun. Now, we don't get paid. We're all volunteers. Every single person at the station is a volunteer, from the manager, the GM, everybody's a volunteer. Nobody gets paid. And we all do it because we're passionate about it. But we are fortunate, Rich, because we have artistic freedom. I feel DJs now really don't have that. They are music programmers, unfortunately, with the opportunity for some genuine personality in there periodically. But, they're dictated so too much. I mean, song lists are pre-designated and everything else. So really, we are very fortunate on community radio to have the artistic freedom that we have within confines. We still gotta, mind the rules.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you two examples to prove exactly what you just said. I worked at WCCC, which is now defunct. It was bought up by a Catholic station. It was a big rock station in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And when I was there in the mid 90s, the first thing they said was, oh, you have a personality? Yeah, we don't want that. Basically, just say your name, the time, the temperature, and the call letters. Then there was a time where the time was running, something happened, and I couldn't play a song. You have to write down every time you can't play a song, why you didn't play that song, what happened. It's just, and this was in the 90s. It's so much stricter now. So it was such a corporate thing, and it wasn't fun. I had more fun, and I actually got paid more on the AM stations. I worked at 990 WNTY and 1240 WWCO. I got paid more, had a lot more freedom and had a lot more fun. And that's why I am having the time of my life at WAPJ.
Yeah.
I used to do an interview show. So basically, I mean, now because of COVID, we're doing it through Zoom. But I used to go in there, do my half-hour interview, and give it to Joe Quirk, and he would just release the show. But I love the fact I can go in there and just talk about, like you said, with confines, talk about what I want and what we're doing, and instead of just like, okay, well, you got to say this every you have to say this and do this and make sure this happens. So I agree with you 1,000% that glad community radio exists. I'm having so much more fun now, and I have a job that pays the bills. I'm just doing this as a hobby, and I love it.
Well, that's it. I'm kind of glad I never did radio as a paid job, because I may never have gone into community radio if it was really, a boring gig. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm good. No.
But it's funny because you brought up another point. One of the things is I went to Connecticut School of Broadcasting, which personally I learned more being an intern than I did ever at the school, but that's another story. But the one of the things they did teach you was you don't have to be funny, but have fun. And you brought that up, and it's so true. If you're having fun on the radio, it's going to bleed through the speakers, and people are like, oh, this show is great. They're having a great time. It's like a little party, and they're having fun listening to you. And I've always had that mentality, and I just went on there, and everybody said, you always seem so happy. So I'm just being myself. And the people saying, oh man, I love listening to the show. You're having so much fun. I didn't have to tell joke after joke after joke. I was just enjoying what I was doing and having fun doing it.
That is exactly it. And that's, like I say, we are so very fortunate because we are not a paid station. We are a nonprofit. And that's the other thing people need to know. WAPJ is a nonprofit. And that is why we don't sell ads. You will never hear us sell an ad. You should never hear our DJs do a call to action, because that's against our, the nonprofit FCC community radio rules. So we can't do calls to actions and things like that. We have sponsors, what we say about them is, very specific, but again, it's not an ad, so this is one of the other reasons why we're allowed to have more fun, because we don't have corporate sponsors and shareholders and, big, huge, boards, having meetings and, critiquing us. We're just very fortunate. And I feel like the community is very fortunate to have the radio station.
Oh, they are. And I frequent a lot of the businesses in the Torrington area, and I talk about the station, and they love that station, and they're always mentioning it, and they're so appreciative. Like whenever somebody does make a comment about like how much they love the place. I know you're not really they're not advertising, but still, it's just a lot of the local entrepreneurs love the fact that we have a local station that promotes local businesses and the local people. And a shout out I have to say very quickly is to the guy that runs this whole thing, John Ramsey. I've known him since the 90s. He used to work at 106 WHCN years ago, and I was an intern there. And when I went to WAPJ, I said, I know you from somewhere. We started talking and realized that we knew each other from that. That guy, he wrote a book on radio. I think he's in the Connecticut Radio Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken. He is, when you think of Connecticut radio, he's one of the first people people who know radio. He's one of the first names that comes up, because he's just done so much for the local, Connecticut radio. And I love the fact that he is the one running this whole show. He brings so much expertise, so much experience, and he just lets you be you. He wants you to be you. He encourages personalities, and I love that.
Yeah, Darcy, I appreciate you doing that local artist thing. I started, I used to work at WPJ a long time ago. I had a local artist show. I was booked for months. I used to have people from New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. I got an award from Sharon Dante. I got some support from some of the schools, some of the businesses, lawyers. Oh yeah, it was fun. Just volunteer. And people say, well, I said, well, they don't see what's behind the scene. A lot of behind the scene was a lot of work. We come up in the front. We were repaired already. Everything's all set.
Yeah. Well, and that is true. It's like, and we do. And sometimes we get in there and because, like we say, everybody's a volunteer. So everything that is maintained, the 15, I don't know, it's probably 15 or 20 miles of wire that is in their studio connecting all this stuff underneath, the different computers. And when I first started there was one screen. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screens in the studio, now, you know what I mean? So it's like we're evolving, and you're right, people don't see that part of it, but they do hear some of our growing pains. We can't always hide that, when we have a technical difficulty or a CD doesn't play or is out, or I call that gremlins. We have gremlins, and we just got to figure out who feeds them after midnight and give them a blanket party.
Well, it's funny because I run into a lot of the local people, and I don't know her last name offhand, but you're gonna know her, Debbie. She knows everybody at WAPJ, and I'm sure she calls you. She mentions your name too. I wish I could remember her last name.
Debbie Taylor.
Yeah, that's the one. And she knows everything that's going on. And she's not the only one that's like that, but it's funny that they're loyal to their local station. They know all the personalities. They call into all the shows. I mean, they can tell me, oh yeah, I heard you on Nutmeg Junction. Oh, did you do an interview? Because my show is every other week, so I'm not on every week. But so I just love the fact that I see all these local people, and they know, like, oh yeah, just listening to Darcy's show, Barry's show, and Conrad's show. I love being a part of that, and I'm so glad that you're a part of it too.
Well, thank you. And I do enjoy it because, for me in the morning, sometimes doing the phone is like, I don't answer the phone in the morning. I will say that's probably one of my things, only because it's so early and I'm trying to keep it all together. And I get telemarketer calls that will sit there and ring the phone while you're live on the air. And so then I'm like, all right, off with the ringer, because, and you see it come up and it's like, Dayton, Ohio, and you're like, try to get to it, and you pick it up because you don't know, you know what I mean, whose cell phones come from all over the place. Oh, and then it's, we're calling you about your car warranty. WAPJ don't have a car. Don't bother me. So the mornings I find it tough, so kudos to like Barry and Holly, who, they, do all kinds of phone stuff in the morning. I'm just happy to keep it rolling.
You know what I like too is, I mean, I've worked at so many stations and there were a lot of egos involved. I love the fact that everybody there is just having a great time. An example would be a couple times Joe Quirk and I came onto your show to promote Nutmeg Junction. I was on Barry Susie's show, then I had other people on my show, and we're just all cross-pollinating, helping each other out, promoting other shows. And it's just that there's no, I mean, I don't know why, maybe because it was paid radio, but there was so much more backstabbing when I was involved in it. Like, oh, why did you get that commercial? I should be doing that. It's just really just worry about yourself. Let me do my own thing. And that's what it seems like. I said, radio is back to what it should be for me. And that's fun. And you do a great job. I want to talk about some of the local artists that you've had on your show. Because Wibo got me involved in this show. I was doing my own show, Claus Corner, and he was doing the local artist show similar to yours, I guess, at WAPJ. I want to know did you have I want to know some of the local artists that you've had in your show. Maybe we've had them as well.
Holy cow.
I know that you've had a lot, but who are some of the more memorable ones, I should say?
Well, it's funny because I was just looking at, I have this.
Well, she's ready. Look at it.
Wow. Okay.
and that's not even entirely complete. You know what I mean? It's not even entirely complete, so these are the ones that I've had on and I play. And like, some of the fun ones, and I gotta be careful. I love all the artists I have on, and a lot of them I found at like open mics, like the Fivers. Okay, I was at a LaSalle's open mic, and kids got up, these 3 high schoolers, and they got up and they played and they sounded great. And I love promoting the young artists because I want them to keep that passion, and they sounded really good and they were tight. And so I approached and I'm like, hey, you guys, how you doing? I'm like, what's the name of your band? I'm like, I do a radio show that, and I told them about the hotspot. I said, I'd love to have you guys on. They're like, we'd love to come on. I'm like, okay, what's the name of your band? And they were like, the Fivers. I'm like, okay, the Fivers it is. And Adelaide who, you know, we all know in Torrington's doing the bus stop stuff. And, you know, she found out I was doing the festival, and she was like 11 at the time. This was like 2 or 3 years ago now. And she reached out to me and she says, I'm only 11, but I can hold the stage. And she pitched herself so well. And it was like a Friday night again at LaSalle. She's like, I'm playing at this time slot. And I was already in my pajamas, like settling in for the night, and then I get this email and I looked at my husband. I'm like, I got to get up and get dressed and go to open mic. And so I did. I went out and saw her and talked with her and ended up getting, having her on the festival for one of the earlier slots, because it's important to, host the young people. And, so I love that. But I've also had, my goodness, that Jeff Suma and the Roasters have been on. I've had the Podunk Throwbacks, who the first time I ever saw them, they were literally busking. This was like probably 2016. They were busking out on Main Street, right in front of where Rock Your Block is now. And so that was the first time I ever saw them. Some of the other really cool ones, Streetlight Shakers, which is Jeff Barat. Streetlight Shakers, if you like Billy Joel, I mean, yeah, I highly suggest you look them up, because they have just such charisma. They're dancing. You like to dance, you'll like them. And then let's see who else we got. Flipper Dave, they've been on a number of times, but now that is Brett Connor's band. There's been an evolution there. Someone You Can X-Ray, who's another great jam band, has been on. I've had Tracy Walton on. I've had him on individually for his studio, and I've also had him on when they were Belle the Fall. It's like Albino Tree. We've had them on. Of course, Robert C. Fullerton's been in the studio, and Angela Luna, which they do a duo called the Angel and the Hustler. Yep. Is there either doer. And Tom the Suit Forrest, is part of the Blues Society here in Connecticut, and he's traveled abroad, including to China. And he did very well over there. And that's the other thing. A lot of people don't realize how many of our local artists are traveling around. Carrie Powers, she's another one. That is one powerful woman, voice, vocally, just, oh my goodness, amazing. But she's been traveling to Europe and stuff like that. So we have got such a wellspring of talent area. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know people are going to be like, this anything. Oh, Brother Other just got back from their very first tour, and I had them on the radio. I saw those guys somewhere, and I'm like, cool. And they called me, and it was so funny because Matt Sickerman, who's part of the duo, it's a duo, says to me, all right, we're called Brother Other. Now say it back to me. I said, other. He's like, no, say it again, Brother Other, because everybody wants to say other brother, right? So now he's like, say it back to me. And then I found he's an educator. I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Well, what's funny? I just saw them for the first time maybe 3 weeks ago at a place called Sherman's Tap House in Sellington.
Burlington.
Yeah. Well, there's Burlington and Sellington. There's two places now.
Okay.
Sellington just opened up not too long ago, but they were there, and the first thing they're like, I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you? And we're going back and forth. I realized back in the 80s, I was in bands, and they were part of that whole scene. And they're like, I remember you were at this band. I was like, well, wow, you have a good memory. So I was actually talking to them about having them on our show as well. But it's funny. Yeah, they're a great band, and they played a lot of great songs, which is probably like 3 weeks ago. But I love Sherman's Tap House. There's another band called Stay Tuned. I'm not sure if you ever had them on there.
No, are they cover band?
For the most part, yeah, they do have some originals, but for the most part, they are cover bands. But they have very eclectic tastes, and it goes from say Freebird to John Denver to
yes.
So I which I love when a band has so many different influences and they put them all together and they make it their own too. That's what I like too. Is they're not just playing a cover song, but they're making it the Stay Tuned version, and I love it. So that's another local band that there's so, like as you said, there's so much local talent out there, and I'm so happy because now that everything seems to be opening back up. I've been going to see shows every single weekend. Like this weekend, I went to see the Jazz Fest on Friday. The Temptations played, which were great. Then Saturday, I went to go see Stay Tuned. Then Sunday, I went back to the Jazz Fest again. And then next week, I'm going to see another band called Acoustic Roots. It's just that, yeah, I'm so glad to have the bars and clubs opening up and having music again. And the places are always packed with people. I think the one good thing that happened with COVID was that it made people appreciate going out and doing things more. Before people like, I'll see it next time. Now they're like, maybe there won't be a next time. Let's go now.
Yeah, we have no idea what's going to happen at the end of this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, and I do, and I think people are more appreciative of it. And I also noticed too that, in some instances, not everyone, but most instances, people are actually even a skosh more personable and more spacious, like respectful, like, you know what I mean? It's like you're not just running up to people and jumping on people and giving them hugs and things like that. Like, hey, how you doing? You kind of see what the temperature is like.
They do the very careful fist bump.
Yeah, you're good. So it's like, so I mean, and personally, I mean, I always have masks on me in my business. I go meet with people in their homes, and some of them are like, no, we're all vaccinated. If you're vaccinated, good. Or some of them have children and they're like, and I'm like, absolutely. I'm not, what are you comfortable with? I'm good either way.
That's exactly how I am too. If they're comfortable, I'm more than happy to take my mask off, but if they're more comfortable with me with the mask on, I'll gladly put it on to respect their space and their feelings. So yeah, and I love that. And I've noticed that a lot too in the different places that I go to, and that people have been, for the most part, people have been a lot more respectful and a lot more thoughtful of other people's space compared to maybe pre-COVID, February 2020.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Or New Year's Eve, 2000. Yeah, and I do appreciate that. It's almost like everybody's a little tepid about, how, that 18 inches. Now, I went to Oliver Wolcott as a kid, and I don't know about other schools, but, there was an 18-inch rule. If you were dating somebody in school, you couldn't be any closer than 18 inches to them. The 18-inch rule. It's called 18 inches of personal space.
Yeah, that's funny.
And I think we've all kind of like, adapted to that.
You were way ahead of the game.
Way ahead of the game.
You've been preparing for this your whole life.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, like when I do a concert, right, and people come to me later on and say, Wibo, is that original song? I said, no, it's a cover tune. I do it my way, and I have fun with it.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. Make it your own. And that's one of the things I gotta do. I love our music community. I'm very fortunate to have, a close-knit community that I'm part of, with like Con and Patty, Con Doty and Patty William, and just the whole group, and Jim Max, and all those guys, Carrie Johnson and Carrie Stelly. But it's wonderful because we're all so supportive of each other.
Yes.
And we uplift each other. So it's kind of like, we go to open mics and stuff like that, especially us newer people. Like I used to fight for last place with Jim and Max all the time. I'm going last. No, I'm going last. No, I'm going last, And now it's like, as we progress along, we're getting better. But it's been wonderful to have that kind of support on, all sides of it all.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned something too, and I agree with this 100%, is that when bands come out, I think that's probably when I like them the most, because they're still hungry, they still want it. And then when they become so successful, you can tell that they're just calling it in and they're not really into it as much anymore. Not every band, but for the most part, I love the up and coming bands, or the ones that are just on the verge of making it. And that's when they come out with the best music. And what's funny, I was watching a documentary on Linda Ronstadt, and she was actually found at a local mic in LA. She was doing her thing, and I can't remember, I think it's the band Chad and Jeremy. And he said, I want to sign you. She goes, I cannot write music, or I cannot write songs. He goes, I'll give you songs to sing. I just love your voice. So you never know. You could be at an open mic and the right person will see you at the right time. And
That's true.
That's it. And you just never know where somebody's going to see something. It could be an open mic, it could be out busking, it could be you sitting on the side of the road, who knows, a traffic jam on the LA highway. Yeah. I mean, who knows who you're going to run into where. I mean, never.
Well, perfect example is the band Journey. The guy who's the lead singer now was doing karaoke, and they saw him on YouTube, and they were looking for a new singer. Like, this guy is great. They called him up. He's from the Philippines, and they're like, hey, you want to join Journey? And he's part of the band now. And it was all him just doing karaoke that was on YouTube.
And that kind of brings us into a whole other aspect of music, which is now the streaming and all the stuff that's come into play, like really hardcore in, say, the last 10 or 15 years, where we're actually getting away from a physical medium to a digital medium. I mean, a lot of bands are pressing less and less CDs because people are going in download sites, so everything happens really fast. And that's one of the challenges I feel like the bands have, because now everything's moving so fast. You better get on that merry-go-round and you better grab on with both hands and you better stick out just far enough so everybody can see you, but you don't fall off, So
but what I like to do is, because I know bands I have a lot of friends who are in bands, which I know you know a lot of musicians as well, and they'll make 3 cents off a song on iTunes.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is, I think iTunes and other, Spotify and other things like that are great because I'll listen to music that I would never even think about listening to. But then I say, if I like them, first thing I'll do is see them when they're in the area, and then I'll buy some merchandise from their table to support them, because I know that's where they make the money now, is touring, selling merchandise. So I like the fact, I think it's good and bad. It's good for some of the up and coming bands who maybe I would never even think about listening to. But for like some of the more established bands, they're not making any money anymore. I mean, they're making money compared to like the 80s and 90s. Similar to books. Stephen King said, he goes, I make less than half of what I used to make. I'm making a great living, but compared to what I was making in the 90s, I'm not doing anywhere near the amount of sales I used to, because people with Kindle and Nooks and all the other downloadables. So yeah, it's digital medium's good and bad. It's
a double-edged sword for sure. And I'm with you. And that's one of the things I always try to do is promote, at least a couple of times during my shows, is to direct everybody to the artist Facebook page. That's one of the reasons I try to announce all the artists and the songs that I play, because we'll get calls or emails to the station that John will forward to me. And, people will want to know, what was that song? I heard it around 7:41 on Thursday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they might have a couple words from the song or a lyric, you know what I mean? But most of the time I could figure it out. Don't ask me about what's out on, Clearwater stations right now, because I can't tell you big box music. You want to ask me about local? Well, I might have an answer for you.
Yeah. Which I love. You're doing, to me, a very important thing, promoting the local
and
talent.
You guys too. You guys, this is another outlet. And you know what? It's great to be able to put the artists out in the airways and talk to them and do the interviews. But it's also great to have them, when we can get back in the studios, have them perform like you guys do live and visually, because some of them bring so much to the table in just their costumes and the way, their production on stage. And you can't see that on the radio or in the CD.
Yeah, that's in the plan.
We had several artists play several songs. I forgot what his name was, but one of your friends, Wibo. But I do agree that, and I love the fact with this that this is seen all over the world. And an example would be, from my other show, I interviewed Ted Neely he played Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar, the movie.
Yeah.
I had compliments from the Netherlands, and had compliments. I mean, this people with things like this. Now, when I was on radio back in the 90s, I was lucky if the wind was blowing in the right direction, people in Springfield would hear me. Yeah. Now I'm getting compliments from the Netherlands, Texas, Detroit, all over, local So I love that for that reason too, and I do like the visual too, because like you said, it's when you're listening to it on the radio, it's one thing, but then when you're actually seeing it, and when we do start having more people perform, it definitely adds a little bit more. And then I have our friend, which I know you know too, my friend John Bristol, which I met when you were doing the studio. You were in the studio when I first interviewed him, and you were going to have him on your show, but then COVID hit.
Yes.
So he and I became the puppet guy, the Elbit Productions.
Yes.
So he and I became friends after the interview, and now he edits my shows, puts all the graphics on here, and it's a great collaboration. I love it. So thank you, John Bristol, for all the
Thanks, John,
on the show.
Yes, and that's important. And that is so much work. When COVID hit, because I'm actually now the president of AIM for a Better Tomorrow. I got that in the fall, kind of like there was a transition there. So that's a nonprofit, and we do art and music programming for at-risk populations. So, and we do a lot with music and musicians. So we started producing the open mic, the virtual open mic. And so the artists at home would take their phones, and do their recordings. They would upload them to a Dropbox, which would go to Diane Davis, who's part of Matchstick Architects, who I've also had in the studio, and they're a lot of fun. Diane is a technical guru, and so she would take all 3 hours of submissions. People are putting in like 10 minutes at a time, right? She'd string them all together, do everything, get everything ready, do all the buffering and the whatchamacallit, who's you digger, pull this, push that, and I don't know, make it worthy of TV. You know what I mean? I have no idea, because it's such a complicated thing and so much goes into that. And she would put hours into this every week, hours, and thank you, Diane. We did it for 27 weeks.
Wow.
We did an open mic. And so we did it. We would air it either on Facebook or YouTube as like the AIM premiere. And then she would make it radio worthy, and we would send it to John Ramsey to be loaded into my time slot. And then we would send it over to the cable station where you guys are now, and they would air it. So, we were able to get a lot of mileage for our local artists, even during COVID,
That's why, I'm sure you heard with our mutual friend Joe Timothy Quirk with Nutmeg Junction. He's on, I don't know how many different 14, and plus now he's in New Zealand and Ireland.
Yeah.
And with Nutmeg Chatter, he's got us on 5, which now I'm airing this show with him, but it's on I think 5 different stations and an online station in Canada. So the opportunities are limitless now. It's just
think about it. Before we went World Wide Web and we started streaming as a radio station, which we haven't been streaming that long, really, a handful of years, but we have not been streaming for that long. So once WAPJ went on to, the World Wide Web, it just opened up everything, because we've got people that listen all over the place. And I love it, because I'll get texts from people, like a lot of people, know how to get a hold of me, most of the artists do, and they'll listen. And I got one that'll, Brett Connors listens all the time. He's always got WAPJ on. And, if I play, when this artist or that artist that he's close friends with, he texts them and tells them that they're playing on the radio. So it's like word gets around, and we can be way more places. And like I tell everybody, we travel well, we're compact, we're smaller than a carry-on bag. Take us with, we like an adventure.
I think for me, this is the best time of doing radio, because you're able to say, like you said, you're able to listen all over the world, and it's not that. Plus, I like this. I'm just having fun now. I'm not trying to make a living out of it. So there's, for me, so much less pressure on myself, and I'm just enjoying this. I love talking to people. So that's why for me doing an interview show was more my style, because I love talking, and like I know you have a great mix of music and talk, but it just worked out for me just to do a straight interview show. But if I was thinking about going back to WAPJ and just doing a music show as well. Just that hasn't happened yet, because I just love being a part of that station. And once the COVID restrictions lift, I'll see what my schedule's like. See if I can get
Well,
it.
yeah, schedule is like, well, and that's it. And it's hard when you have the kind of passions and then there's a lot of opportunities. You kind of have to, and that's where I'm at right now. I have, my job, real estate is just, we are considered essential workers. And actually my husband, who's a research and development, in the science world, he does R&D. We have been working through this whole thing, and real estate is off the chain, like just off the wall busy. We're running miles and miles and miles farther than we normally would have because of the limited supply of homes. So people are having to look out further away and stuff. So I mean, we have had no break. This is like, normally in the winter is when real estate agents can take a vacation. They can deep dive clean their house. They can, they can get projects done. But that was not the case this winter. We ran all winter like it was spring. So I'm like exhausted. We are all like, wow, we're just right out, so. But that's, I have to work the balance because, and that's one of the things Rich and you and I were talking about even before we went on. It's just, kind of like, all right, where do I want to focus my attention? Because I have found over the years that I'm best off to select the things that I can do and I can put my whole heart into and do the very best. I'd rather do less, the very best, than more half done. You know what I mean?
No, that's great way to think, because you could do 8 things well, but 2 things excellent. So I'd rather do 2 things excellent instead of, all right, well, I'm involved in 12 different things, but I'm okay to all of them, and I really don't have time enough to put the full effort into all of it. So yeah, I'm with you on that, and I do have a couple, like right now, I'm not really doing comedy anymore, but that led to motivational speaking, which I just did a show at the Palace, which led to 3 more shows. So I mean, I've been really enjoying that, and then doing this show with Wibo, and I still do the Claus Corner a little bit. So I think those are the 2 things I'm really concentrating on: motivational speaking and this. And I'm enjoying them.
Congratulations on your new book and all the stuff. I saw that in the comedy and everything else. I know I got to get.
Which is hot.
And you know what? I'm telling you, I know it's like you're out killing it, and I think that's great. And I think comedy is something that is I've been noticing over the last few years is taking off. Now I've lived all over the country, but I lived in Pensacola, Florida for a while. They had this place called Coconuts Comedy. And it was the first time. I was in my early 20s, so I hadn't seen a whole lot by then anyways. But I was like, wow, this is cool, and you'd go there and they had, like sit down drinks and stuff like that, like a comedy club. And it was so much fun. And that place was sold out. They would do 2 shows a night, 3 weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, 2 shows a night, and they would be sold out every single time. So I'd love to see something like that, Rich, if we know philanthropical people that need a project, maybe we could get them to open a comedy club.
Yes, I love it. Be a comedy / music club where creative people can come in, not just funny people, not just musical people, but I think that would be great.
You know what? If we could do an improv with the comedy people and the music people, because music people are very improvisational, most of them. I'm working on getting, but where they play and stuff like that. And it's like, I loved improv. I thought it was funny. Like I could totally see it, Rich. I could see a musician being, okay, I'm going to play a funny tune, and you've got to perform to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I love see we're the wheels are turning already. Whoever's listening to this, you want to help us put it together, help us fund it, please get in touch with one of us.
Yeah, that would be fun. And improv is just a blast.
I found with improv, and this is what they were teaching us too when I first started doing it, was don't think too hard. Just say the first thing comes out of your mouth, even if it's not going to be funny, because that's going to lead to somebody else saying something which could be funny. And then when I learned that, I would just let it flow, and it would turn like one word into a 30-minute skit. It was great. I had so much fun, and as I told you before, that taught me so much to go on stage and just be myself. with the audience and just have fun.
See, and that's what I bring to music. And it's funny because I can't tell you how many performing musicians I've had in the studio, and they're a nervous wreck, especially like some of the newer ones or something like that, maybe who have never been on the radio. And they are just like, they're so nervous. And I used to be like, but you performed. They're like, yeah, but that's different. And then it kind of dawned on me, because when they're performing, that's rehearsed. Yeah. When you're on the radio, it's not rehearsed. And so I would just tell people, don't worry. We're going to sit down. We're going to be looking at each other. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions that you're going to know the answers to. And we're just going to have a conversation. And, by the end of it, these microphones are going to be annoying because they're going to be in the way, and, I'm like, sorry, it's chill, be good. And by the time, we're done, usually they're like, cool, like, that's what we're here for, we're not here to put on a burner and make you sweat,
It's funny. I don't know why, but even before, when I got to radio, I always felt comfortable behind the mic, always felt comfortable in front of an audience. I never had stage fright, never was worried about before I get on stage. I remember people would say, the perfect example would be, I was doing comedy, and somebody that was doing comedy for 25 years said, I said, well, how long do you think I'm in comedy? He goes, from your stage presence and the way you talk, I would say at least 10 years. I said, no, it's been 4 months. And he couldn't believe it. I always just felt comfortable. And I like, whenever I do radio interviews, they're like, wow, you do a lot of these. I mean, not really, but I said, I never really had a problem of, the Cindy Brady look, like, when she sees the red light.
Yeah, I don't get that when I'm doing something like this, or if I'm emceeing, or if I'm giving, because I've been part of, some bigger organizations and stuff like that, which required me to give like informational speeches to large groups. No problem. But for me to like get on, up at open mic and stuff like that, it's like I'm like, who the heck is, what's going on? Why am I like out and everything else? And it's like, everybody's like, but you're on the radio and this and that. I'm like, but it's different.
It's definitely different medium, and people don't understand it. But for me, I love the live aspect only because, especially if it's going well, I feed off the audience. So if the audience is really into what I'm doing, then I feed right off of that, and then it could just go on and on and on. And I love the instant feedback when I'm doing radio or something like this. I'm not sure who's watching this, who's liking it, what they're thinking. I'm just recording it. I'm enjoying it myself, but when it's live, immediately if they like it and how they're reacting.
Yes, and that could be a double-edged sword too.
Exactly. Yes. Oh yeah, please. Not everything I've done has gone well. I'm not saying that, because there's been plenty of times where I walked on stage, but luckily I always had the mentality. I was like, well, they laughed last night, they'll laugh tomorrow. So I never really got off stage, and I said, what's the worst thing that's going to happen to me? I'm not going to get off stage and die. So I always had that mentality, and it would just like wash right off me. So that's good. But I know I've worked with so many comedians that they would be crushed if their jokes didn't go well. And it didn't go. It was very painful to watch sometimes for other people that took it so personally. Like, don't worry about it. You're going to live with this for the next 4 months. They're going to forget about it by the time they go home. Don't even think about it.
Listen, I went to a show, we won't even go into what it was, but there was a music portion. It was a fundraiser, it was all for a wonderful cause fundraiser. So had a local band play for like a couple of hours, while people were having dinner and stuff like that. And the main thing was comedy. Now the comedians came in from nowhere's around here. So the comedy that they brought, it was rough because, at one point somebody's like, oh, this is the Alabama section of Connecticut.
Oh, that's funny.
So you can tell from that, okay, it's really important, with the comedy to make sure you know your demographic.
Oh yeah. I used to do 4 shows per week, sometimes like Connecticut, New York, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and I would do the same set and get 4 or 5 different reactions every single time. So yeah, I've learned to realize, okay, this audience doesn't like this type of humor, so I'm going to go and leave that out and go with the other jokes, or vice versa. So I definitely, it took me a while to get to that stage. So I did comedy for a couple of years, but the first 2 or 3 years, it was more just testing the waters, not realizing, having those moments, which I think anyone up on stage by themselves probably can relate to that.
Yeah. And I was like, I mean, it was kind of funny, and I laughed at a bunch of their stuff that a lot of other people didn't laugh at, but I'm a middle of the road kind of person. I can laugh at either side. And so it's like, but oh my God, there were points where I actually was like, oh, I'm burning for this poor guy, because he just couldn't get like nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, I felt so bad for him, and a few of us would be like, yeah. Because support people and be nice.
That's funny.
Oh my God.
I'm sure Wibo has some horror stories himself.
Oh, you mentioned open mics, right? When I used to do the open mic a long time ago, and you had the list there, right, from 1 to 25 or whatever. And the first 4 spots, nobody sang.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. Then when I started doing, every time I go to open mic, I already put down number 1. Go first.
To do. I think I need to adopt that, because then I get antsy and anticipation and all this stuff when you're waiting for your turn. So I should probably just just go right in there and do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Something, man. Is Darcy, you doing a good job with the local artist show on your WAPJ? Boy, I'll be hearing you.
Well, between all of us, we've got you guys doing what you're doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. We've got a lot of local musicians out there doing open mics, and we've got some events going on, things that are designed to bring more of the artist community together. So if we all do a little, it'll equal a lot.
Yeah, work together. Communication, work together. It's not about me. Some people, it's all about
right.
Me. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. I find that ego.
Yeah.
Ego. Got to be careful. I mean, and I understand, with artists and stuff like that, and it's been explained to me that have a little bit of ego to get up there and do that performing. And maybe that's kind of what I'm lacking. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like you have to have a little, but nobody should have such a big ego they can't fit through the doorway.
Exactly. Do you remember Sebastian? Sebastian was on 106.9 WCCC.
Yes.
He was one of my instructors, and he had 2 great sayings. One was, the more no's get you closer to a yes, which he was talking about giving a tape. They're like, the first one, program director's going to say it stinks. Go to the next one, never give up. But the other thing he said was, radio is 90% attitude, 10% talent. And so he goes, listen to the radio. Most of these jocks are horrible, but they go on there, they have an attitude. But like you said, it's not, their ego can't be so big they can't fit through the door, but you do have to have confidence. So that's why I always like to say, I'm not arrogant, but I'm confident. I know what I do, and I know what I do well, and I enjoy what it's, but I'm not in there saying, oh, I'm the best, nobody's better than me. I love working with other people like yourself, Barry, all the names we mentioned before, Conrad, and when you work together with people, you get more out of it.
Yes, exactly. And and that's so nice. We promote each other's show. Like John, are back to back on Thursday mornings. He comes in after me, and not always, but sometimes we'll sit in the studio together and do a little bantering back and forth, or discuss something, because he too likes to talk, and I'm a talker, obviously. So those of us, Wibo, I hear you over there. So those of us do interviews and stuff. As much as we still love being in there, but there's still there's a little something missing. Not having other bodies in there with you.
Yeah, I'm hoping sometime soon. So I mean, there are so many places opening up. Have you heard any word on when they might open up the radio station again?
Late summer was the last thing. So I mean, I'm hoping, and what I'm really hoping is that because the COVID numbers are climbing and stuff like that, and that is always a barometer of going to happen in certain entities and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping that this trending rise will stop, and a lot of it will depend on that, Rich. Unfortunately, we're at the mercy of, others,
Yeah.
Well, for me, the one good thing that happened because of COVID was that I was forced to do this, and I've been able to get guests that would normally, because the other studio, the phone doesn't work, so I couldn't have phone, so they would only have to come in the studio. So now with this, I can get people that I normally wouldn't get. An example would be not for this show, but the other show, I had Dee Wallace from ET, Adrian Barbeau from Maude, and I would never ever be able to get them into WAPJ. So I like that aspect of it. But just like we talked about with bands and doing live, I loved doing interviews in person because you could feed off the person, and just we had a great conversation. And just I love Zoom, but it doesn't have that same feel as when you're in the same studio.
The body language, you don't have the vibration of the souls.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. So hopefully by the end of this summer we'll be back in the studio, but I'm just glad that we all have this medium to continue it, because I would hate to stop it altogether. I'm glad there's a way that between Amazon and Zoom, those two guys are the richest people in the world. They were at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, curbside.
Yep.
I'm like me out of the grocery store. I don't impulse buy. It's a planned. It's like I kind of like that curbside pickup, but I am be able to get out and support the local businesses again and actually start getting in there. I mean, all through the pandemic, we didn't do a whole lot. And of course, my husband's company, because my husband was very, very high risk, when at the very, very start of this, because he had health problems going on, other things underlying. And so they literally sent him home. They're like, go home, stay home until we tell you to come back. And it was 4 months. And it's like, there was no, he didn't get laid off or anything, but they were like, no, you go home and just stay there. We'll call you, and so we ordered out a lot. We would order out takeout once a week and, go down and, one of us would go down and get it, do curbside and everything. And we would just make sure to spend well and tip extravagantly, you know what I mean? Because we didn't know what else to do to help these people. I mean, we were okay, you know what I mean? And it's like, but we knew so many people that were just, falling off the rails and try to do that. So I'm very grateful to be able to get out and support our, our local businesses and purveyors and crafters and, even just being able to have service, somebody come into the house and do service during COVID was difficult, all those people, in certain sectors, just, they got laid right out, it's like, so I'm really grateful, and I know, most of us are.
Me as well. I'm very, very, very grateful. And I work in the Torrington area, so I support a lot of businesses. I'm going to name two right off the bat: Toothpick and Sasso's, two of my favorite places in the WAPJ area. And I go there all the time, and I'm just so happy that they're starting to pick up again, because I know for a while it was really tough for them.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, Toothpick opened in the middle of it. Now I fortunately, the times that I am downtown, there's nothing open. There's nothing open. Like 7 to 10 a.m. on a Thursday, there's nothing open. And there, it's just not, it's not business time. And Mondays, mostly everything's closed. It's my other day. So I don't get down there much, but other parts of Torrington, like I stopped into Jimmy's the other day, Jimmy's store, I've always been, I've had him on the radio, Rob Pershing. He's just a blast.
Very supportive too.
Yes, I stopped over there and I saw him, and I'm like, he looks over the car, he's like, hey, Darsh, so I talked with him. I'm like, so what's going on? Oh, they added a food bar up there, like a hot food bar that they serve you and everything, so they got like nice hot meals up there. Their food truck, they're converting, from pizza to be more like hot dogs, hamburgers, and wraps and things like that. So I'm like, good. Give me a call, Rob, as soon as it's done and ready to roll out, and we'll get on the radio and do you do a show, like let's tell you everybody all about it. And Jimmy's, they've been in Torrington for like 70 years.
Wow.
So I'm glad to see that places like Toothpick actually made it to get open and have, survived that kind of opening circumstance, and that places like Jimmy's has survived it.
Yeah.
What's funny is it always pops up in my Facebook memories, and one was just last week. I performed at the Performance Hub several times, which was the old Toothpick. And from that look, I guess you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so yeah, but whenever I go in there now, I'm like, yeah, over there, that's where I perform. It's just, it's a completely different.
Yeah, there was, potential there that just, so, but
I know a little bit about it, so without even getting into it,
yeah.
So yes, and actually, I'm so glad, I love what the downtown partners did with the marquee and put the downtown on it. Actually, that marquee, AIM worked with Right Way Signs, and we donated that to downtown.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was the whole purpose of that marquee, was to help the business that it was on, as well. But the reason we wanted all those, I wanted, when I worked with Right Way to do that, I wanted it to be there to be able to welcome new businesses. Like when Gravity opened, which unfortunately is not here anymore on Water Street. When Gravity opened, it was, we did a welcome to the neighborhood Gravity, but we would welcome, really try to roll out, what carpet we could or what carpet we had for the new businesses. So I'm really glad to see the marquee in use, refaced, bright and fresh and shiny and new.
Did you ever have Lucinda Rowe and Mick Connolly on your show from Red Room?
No.
Okay.
No, but I've had like Tracy Walton, Eric Lichter. I've had plenty, Kingship. I've had plenty of recording studios on, though.
The reason I was asking, because they're in that area, and I interviewed them for Nutmeg Chatter, but they've been very good to me by sending me local musicians. And one of them was actually Carmine Apiece, who isn't exactly a local musician. He's the drummer for Rod Stewart, Ozzy, and several other people. Now I guess they're putting a show on with Corey Glover from Living Color. There's kind of the Litchfield Foundation counts. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's some show that's going on. Yeah, there's a lot happening, and things are getting somewhat back to normal, and hopefully the numbers don't continue to go up. Hopefully they go down. That's a lot of hoping and wishing, but we're doing what we can. And Darcy, I really do appreciate having you on the show, and I look forward to listening to you on the radio.
Yes, and likewise, and keep up the good interviews and bring in all that good stuff. And it's like, that's one of the things I've been doing, is going out and interviewing people and like meeting with them and recording the interviews and then bringing it back to the studio. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that. And I'm going to be meeting with Alex Datsuk tomorrow at Rock Your Block to talk about, how I can help him promote, that the event you were just mentioning. I know the date of it, but I have a really hard time with the really long name.
Yeah, that's why I think
August 14th. I'm like, it's a creative festival. Like, don't ask me other stuff before it, okay?
I think the 10 words I mentioned all at once were in that title, but probably not in that order. I just know that Litchfield Creative Council Festival. Joey Witt and the Definition are playing. Corey Glover.
Yeah. And there's going to be stuff going on all over town. So, tune into WAPJ, because we're going to be bringing you all of that. I know Barry will be covering probably the Lucinda side, of things and stuff. And I know I'm going to be working with Alex and them to kind of get all the other areas where there's going to be musicians and kind of get in touch with, touch base with the musicians and kind of promote all of that. So, and you're going to be doing your different parts of it. And so, between all of us, WAPJ will be promoting whatever local event is going on. And I know that like Tracy Walton, there's the Friday night music thing, the Tuesday night music thing in Co Park. So they've been doing a bunch of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And I'm really excited to go over to Barber Street and what is it? The Artist Outlet, Chaz.
I've heard of it, but I'm not really sure.
Well, I'm gonna go over there. I'll get the skinny and then share with you, and you could go,
Yeah.
We'll get him around on all the,
No, exactly. Please do that. If you find out what exactly it is, because I've heard that, but I wasn't sure what it was. I'd love to learn more about it.
Yeah, and that's an old church, and it's funny because I used to live in that area as a kid, and I used to babysit. I was like a young teen, and I had a ton of babysitting gigs. That church used to be residential, and there was an apartment downstairs, and there was an apartment upstairs. And I remember there was like these three couples, and they would go out. They like to go out together, and they would leave me like with 6 kids in the church, 2 babies, 2 toddlers, and 2 slightly older. But yeah, that church is, and it's beautiful. So I will check that out. We'll have to talk.
They used to have shows over there.
Yes.
Benefits, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Was it Timothy Allen? Was it Timothy? Oh my goodness. And he used to do the classical things, and you could bring your own wine and sit around in the beautiful room. So I'm sure it's got to be great for recording because of all the wood. I mean, an old wood.
The acoustic is nice in it.
Yeah.
I saw that. It's nice, very nice in it. Acoustic. Yeah.
Cool.
I still want to go back to your idea about an hour ago, where we were talking about getting a place, having local musicians, local entertainment. Comedy. Comedy. And we can also now take the local business entrepreneurs and have them cater the event, get everybody involved.
Exactly.
Yeah. Could be a big event.
It's absolutely doable. It's just finding the space and getting the people. I mean, it's a totally doable idea. And I really think that, there's at least a handful of your listeners out there who are going to be like, yeah, and they're probably going to think about it, and it's probably going to stay on their minds, a few of them. And who knows, that might be the catalyst,
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do to get it rolling. And maybe we could team up with a venue that's already in place to kind of get it started until we can, until it gets going. Now, here we are knocking ourselves out of balance again because we're starting a whole new project.
I know.
Whole new.
Yeah. But it does tie in with our passions.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's what matters. And Rich, I want to welcome you to the board of the Winston Phoenix, which I am also.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you've joined the board. You're going to be doing some writing. That's awesome.
Yep,
I'm
very excited.
Board. Yeah. So
Tell me about it. Yeah, say Rich. I say Rich who?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
So, matter of fact, the new issue comes out tomorrow.
Yep.
It's put out every 2 weeks, and I think we're in our 44th issue, and we are back in print, which is very exciting. And the Winston Phoenix, which is going to be changing to the Northwest Phoenix, the name is going to change. And we just feel like, part of that is because it'll broaden our area, you know what I mean? And not keep us pigeonholed. And it just kind of represents the broader area, rather than just Winstead, you know what I mean? So we feel like that'll help, get it out there a little more. But it's out there, and Shaw's done a phenomenal job. He really has. It's, and it's been an uphill battle. And then we got, the COVID happened, so we had to go. And when we went out of print and everything went online, it was so impossible to get advertisers because the Phoenix is a nonprofit organization. It's a bona fide nonprofit. And so we operate on donations and ad sales. So, if there's any local businesses out there, and you're looking for a place for some extremely affordable print advertising, please check out the winstonphoenix.org.
Good. I'm so glad to be a part of it. I was on the phone with Shaw the other night. We were going over different things, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. And I can't wait to start writing because the wheels were already turning for me. I'm already thinking about, I want to talk about this, talk about that. And Shaw said, Rich, go ahead. He just let me loose. So I'm looking forward to it.
Because he's, Shaw, God bless him, because he's been like the one-armed paper hanger.
Yeah.
all aspects of this. You know, a lot of it, we can all lend a hand as much as we can, but he's the newspaper person.
Yeah.
So he's really, so I think it's great that you've joined and are going to be able to help him with the coverage. And there are a couple other contributing writers and stuff. And I think that's very helpful because he can't do it all on his own. And you also need different perspectives to have a good, complete newspaper.
Yeah, I've been sending articles and stuff, photographed to Sean, and I should be in this week and next week by summer camp. And
Nice.
up there, Camp Coleman up there.
I love it. See, again, just goes to prove like everybody working together and for their passions, and just it's great when great things can happen. Great things can only happen when everybody's working together without egos involved.
Right. Well, when everybody, and that's, it goes back to the whole thing when there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Kind of like, everybody know your station. Have you ever watched Hell's Kitchen? Everybody know your station.
Oh yeah, no, I'm very comfortable in my station. I know exactly what my job is and what I want to do, and if I ever get too close to the fire, I'll back off.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm good. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on. Really been so much fun, and welcome to my home. I know we got my husband's piano here.
Oh, you should have played your guitar for us.
Well, I will next time.
Next time, all right.
Next time, and like I said, I'm really hoping. Carrie and I are planning on going in and recording in the late fall, and I'm really hoping to release it in January. It'll just be a short EP, like a sampling, but it's fun. I'm turning.
Have you back on so you can promote it.
Yeah, well, I'm turning 50, so I'm like, what better? That's like perfect,
That's perfect. It's a great addition to the bucket list. I love it. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. All right.
It was so great having you on the show. That wraps up another edition of Rich and Wibo Present the Local Artist Show. A special thank goes out to the realtor, local artist, DJ, musician, a great person in general, Darcy Abbott.
Thank you.
Like to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Good night.